computer. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee meeting of the 10th of December 2026. We need to introduce ourselves by a roll call. So I am Gloria Parkinson here.
Dave Notaro here.
Alan Pratt here.
Jim Webster here.
So, okay, so we've got AP, I'm just making it cheap. And we went online at 6:02, call to order at 6:02, 6:01 actually PM. Okay. I have to remember to keep my eye out. Oh, here comes Dean. Pause, everyone. Here comes Dean.
Hey.
Oops, almost. Admit. Dean is joining.
Yay.
There he is. Hi, Dean.
Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dean. I've pressed recording, so I've called us to order a minute ago. So would you like to announce your presence for the roll call?
Dean Briggs present.
Okay. All right. And I've just said I was very late in sending out a discussion document. I don't know if you had time to look at it.
I have.
What? Sorry.
I have.
Ah, okay. So the first piece of business, I would like to table the minutes of October the 8th, which is the first. This is because I ran out of time today. So I am proposing to table that. Okay. I don't know if we have to have a vote. Do we have to have a vote? I don't think so.
Wouldn't think so, because it's kind of a moot point anyway, right?
It is a moot point, right? Yes, because if you don't want to table it, it's too bad, you know.
Stop the meeting until you write them, right?
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. These are such fun meetings. So Dean, Christine sends her apologies. She's got a bug. It is bug season.
I'm
right.
hearing a lot of that on my Zoom calls. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then I am looking. There is no member of the public, which was the next one. None. All right. So to our, usual agenda of updates and seasonal stuff. I have to say that you guys did a phenomenal job until the snow came. So I congratulate you and thank you a lot for all of that work you put in with that minus Sam Bell. And hopefully Sam will be back next year. And also thank you for the chainsaw parties as well, for moving all that, that ginormous tree and other stuff. Dean, I'm sorry you shouldn't have lifted it that heavily. Sorry.
Those are the things you never know until the next morning. I don't know how Dean did it, but usually it's like you wake up the next day and say, uh-oh, what happened?
MRI tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the day.
Right. So
Tomorrow,
please take
yeah.
that, but that's a note to all of you.
Hoping for the best.
Take care. I mean,
Yeah.
that was an enormously heavy tree, though, wasn't it? That was the big one, the one that was down.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
looking
And
at you
still,
all for nod your heads or something.
There's still some of it left for spring, but it's another problem.
Well, yes, spring will be a little late this year. That's a line to a song, just in case
Yes.
you didn't get the references.
And I have to say, the other
kidding.
tree, Dave, I went with Dave, but Dave did most of it. It was a much smaller tree, but it still was a lot of work. And thank you, Dave, for doing most of the work while I, dragged a few branches away.
Oh, well, thank you all. Really, thank you all. You really did over and above. Okay, so going ahead here, yes, I just thank you for the chainsaw parties, DN particularly, especially. Thank you, Dave. The rusty fence. Okay, land management. I did notice that I added it into the agenda for more possible discussion, but just an FYI, Jim found this number 2 on the agenda. Okay, there's been that report that the Northeast is warming faster than the rest of the world, whatever that means in terms of Rauscher Farm management, but it has been stated. So again, some of the things we
They
see is
seem
not
to,
our imagination. Yes, Jim?
and they seem to be linking it probably to changing ocean currents, warmer ocean currents affecting the weather in the Northeast and New England in particular more than the rest of the country. So we seem to be having faster temperature rise than forecast on average for the country.
Hmm. And quite how that will play out, in the next more immediate future, the next several seasons, we don't know. I mean, the summers get hotter. You can't, it's such a complex
Well, it is
in,
because sometimes even though the system is warming, you suddenly get shifts in the jet stream, and we get like we have right now or had the other day. It's all of Canada came down to visit us for a few days.
mm, very brave of them. Um, so
Yes.
anyway, okay, I didn't say that. So that report, we might come back to it.
Delayed reaction there.
Yes, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, we are on record, guys. Yeah, so we want to have that in the back of our mind and actually see if, like, what is there any difference over the winter season? Is there any difference over the 2026 summer? Or does it just seem what we've been witnessing anyway? We can't tell, but we know that summer, the whole planning of events has become extremely unpredictable. I'm talking about the events that we do on Rauscher Farm. Very, very, the weather has blown one way and blown the other, and even more so with the summer. So I'm just spreading that. Okay, onward. Um, yeah, David Cowell, we know, and I did just note in the discussion document some of the things we actually talked about in October, but then we didn't have the November meeting. So, for example, just reiterating that David Cowell, wearing his senior wetland scientist hat, did confirm that the areas of the grassland meadow are transitioning into wetlands. Now, this will be in the minutes that we've just tabled too, so we'll have more of that documented. The woodlands we discussed at our October meeting, which is we are not changing any of the management strategies for white pines. We had a fairly extensive conversation about that, I recall. Stop me if you think I'm.
Just FYI, we didn't get to do that in the spring. We're going to do it in the fall, but fall came and went before we had a chance. I did buy a small hatchet to keep in the barn. So we do have a hatchet in the barn specifically to be used for girdling trees when the time comes. But we'll sort of do that collectively when the time comes so we can pick and choose which trees to thin and which ones to girdle.
I have a thought. Okay. If we're going to do a volunteer day in the spring, which I hope we are, right?
Mhm.
Can we include that we're going to girdle trees on that volunteer?
I'm not so sure because, first of all, we need to thin some of those trees out, which is chainsaw work. So fine, we don't want to do that part with volunteers around. The girdling, my concern with that is, you need to just slice around it with a handsaw, but then you need to chip out the barks in between these two slices with a hatchet. And
Okay.
personally, I really don't like hatchets, but it's about the only right tool for the job. The trouble with hatchets, you only have one hand on the tool and you swing it very close to your
Okay.
body.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think we want volunteers doing it who aren't sort of, drilled and ready to do it. You know.
Okay. I'm wondering.
That
Yeah, I hear that. I'm wondering if there is a woodland person who would do a how-to girdle for people. I mean, say that I hear what you're saying, don't let people who are totally unversed in how to girdle or how to hold a hatchet.
and we'd also don't want people decide that, oh, I'll just come back and pick and choose what I want to do on my own. Because we need to very carefully, based
Okay.
on the written directions we've had on, how to
Okay.
select the trees.
So
Basically, the whole
what?
point of this,
Yeah.
the whole point
Uh,
of this is just to thin out the smaller white pines, some of the bigger ones, thin out some of the bigger ones that are specifically shading out or crowding out the hardwoods around them to open up canopy for those hardwoods.
okay.
But so we need to sort of pick and choose the right ones. Dave and I flagged a couple in the spring that we never got back to, just as examples of ones that look to us like good ones to do. But it's not like mass destruction. We need to carefully sort of pick and choose our targets.
Okay, let me try and is there an in between here? so that because there's only a few of us, I say us, it's you guys, you're doing this, not me. I'm the one that sits here and writes stuff. Like in the pollinator garden project, over the whole setting that up, and it has been, can you believe it, 3 years in the making? So, but
Believe
but
me,
it
I believe it, yeah.
yeah, but and we've had like batches of volunteers who had absolutely no experience in anything. We've also had some focused volunteers, in other words, almost by personal invite, who have become engaged in the project. Is there an in between to help? I'm looking at trying to get more people interested in the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee and
And,
all of
and we
that.
and we and we badly need some new recruits because some of us, I won't name names, are starting to age out, and we need to find our own replacements here. But that's you know.
Okay, so
So I'm not averse to doing it. What I'm just afraid of is suddenly have people willy-nilly out there with
right,
dangerous
no, I
tools and
agree with that. Yeah, we don't want children either.
no, right.
Okay, so how
And,
about
and even and even
we
on
give
another event, it wasn't one of ours, but on another event that was being sponsored by another group, I remember there was people turning up with chainsaws who weren't using any safety equipment or operating around other people and whatever. And we don't want
yeah.
anything
At
like that
Rauscher
going on.
Farm?
No, not at Rauscher Farm. It was another event elsewhere in town.
Okay.
Any idea on how many trees need to be girdled?
I'm not sure because the forestry plan and the area that to focus on initially, which is called out in the newest forestry plan, is that area when you go around, around by the Beaver Lodge and head uphill,
Yeah,
and on
yeah.
the right, that area has all the newer, younger growth trees that were called out, in a previous report. And that area still has a lot of really nice hardwood trees that are adolescent. I mean, semi-growing trees, but as white pines do, they do tend to just fill in and take over all around it. So that area has lots of young white pines, which we definitely need to go in and thin out, not clear cut, but we've talked about that. So we need to those younger ones. We need to go into chainsaws, the ones that are like 4 or 5 inches deep, cut them, let them fall, and stay where they are, which is what the plan calls for. But then also amidst those, there are some bigger white pines. I mean, talking, like a foot in diameter or bigger that also are near, like some, oaks and maples and beeches and things we want to keep. So some of those, I did flag a couple just as examples of the types of things according to the plan we should look for. So we need to sort of pick so we need to sort of walk through. Maybe that's something to do with volunteers. We could maybe have people walk through with yellow tape, discuss what we're looking for, and pick potential candidates. But just because they've been picked doesn't mean they will be cut. It means those are
Okay.
the
Yeah.
types of things we're looking for.
Okay.
And then selectively, we want to say, we'll take this one, but not that one, because we don't want to wipe out all the white pines, but we also do want to open up canopy so that those hardwoods can climb and grow.
I'd be willing to take a walk up there and see what we could take out with a forest thinning saw. That's a incredibly efficient way to take out the 3 inch and under pines. So if you want to identify those, I'd certainly be willing to take a walk up there and thin some of those out, but would want guidance
No,
on what
whatever
we
we do,
want
it
to
has to
thin.
be at least two people because some of those we're probably talking from, the tiny saplings up through maybe 4 or 5 inches. We don't want to do anything any bigger
Yeah,
than
well,
that.
that's
Okay.
a
On our
different
own. We gotta,
tool, but I wouldn't,
yeah,
I'm talking about the smaller ones, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So can I just try and put this into a proposal, right? That yes, there is stuff that only experienced people should be doing, and we don't want people, you know, inexperienced, and we certainly don't want young people waving hacksaws, right? Okay. But is there a way of combining what Jim just said and combining what Dean just said, a sort of volunteer activity that looks at white pines and identifies explain what girdling is and basically walks through to identify it, but at the same time possibly combining Dean's suggestion um, of looking for things that can be taken out with lesser tools. Am I paraphrasing you correctly, Dean?
Again, like our general volunteer days, we suddenly have a dozen or more volunteers. I really don't want even the forest thinging sorrel things. You don't want people near that tool when it's moving,
Right.
other than the person operating it. So
Okay.
again, again, if we wanted to go out and flag things and identify them, and that is one of those things we could do like the last time that could be combined depending on who we have with, people pulling some of the what do you call it, the Japanese barberry and stuff like that, and maybe others going out and selecting candidates for thinning or girdling, but we don't want to actually using chainsaws or that power
No,
saw
I,
or
I
any of that
agree.
stuff.
And I think what I'm asking is, do we have a very, very focused volunteer project, which is exactly what we're discussing now, which is not having people turn up and say, I'm here, what can I do? And reaching for a tool, but have a volunteer project that is as much about identification and education versus actually doing the job, where the job might be delayed for another volunteer session, maybe not even necessarily that far away, so that people come and they get educated. I mean, this is sort of what happened with the pollinator. People got educated over time, and so then came, especially in those two final sessions, knowing what they were doing, right? Or very briefly having it explained to them. Can we work on that type of model for
Is
this
the
project?
priority to clear these trees in a planful way, or is the priority to engage volunteers? Because they're two different things. And
Well,
if we want to just take down small trees, that's a one-person job working knowledgeably with a tool. If we want to engage people around girdling trees, that sounds like a different task, and it sounds like it requires different supervision, etc.
Except to me, it's a two-person job with one person standing well back. It's
I think I'm proposing both, Dean. Okay. I'm proposing that there is of an educational volunteer session, right?
oh, I'm talking that
Meanwhile,
entire hilltop. I mean, I'm talking about 7, 8 acres, is mostly white pine. And the bigger, older sections are almost dominated with white pine. We get so some of those have to be marked and thinned too. But that's down the road. We should start on the less onerous section where the trees are younger. It's on that newer growth hillside, because we have to learn ourselves. So I'm not quite sure. There might be some value in having people come in. And what we really need to do is to find something to recruit some new people to sort of become regular volunteers, but
that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. That is precisely what I am trying to do. Because if you guys keep saying, oh, no, it has to be us and blah, 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 we're not actually attempting to recruit other people. So what I'm suggesting is that we start looking at very specific program, activity, whatever you care to call it, whereby one of the underlying motives is to actually educate some people who have the potential to become informed and educated volunteers going forward. Because if we don't start doing that, we're all just going to die off, just like, and the invasives will win,
Yeah,
sort of
I think
thing,
you're on the right track there, Gloria.
And
I
we can
agree
talk.
for the need for that. I agree
So
with that.
what I'm proposing is we've started a discussion, but next month, January the 14th is our next meeting. We seriously, exchange opinions between ourselves, but we seriously come up, and it may be 2 different days, 2 different time frames, but something that actually reaches out to people based on the model of the pollinator garden. Because when they first started clearing the ground, right, then we had everybody. We had the Girl Scouts, we had everybody, right? And we needed that. But now we're talking about, for this project, a more informed, educative, etc. So we have to get people there. We have to explain what it is, how it is, and why it is. So, I'm saying one session on recruiting to do that, with the underlying thing of this is what Rauscher Farm needs, and if you start getting into this, then you start to become into, the volunteers who actually know more than just raking leaves or cutting back prickers. You see where I'm going?
I
But then there will
appreciate
be
your
things that,
efforts. I appreciate your efforts to bring in new volunteers, Gloria. I think it's critical.
So let's work out how we might do it safely, and yet at the same time, make that boundary between what is a safe first project for people who've never done this. And if it
Well,
is only
I think probably along those lines, what we need is to create a day that is like, again, not the general volunteer day where everybody turns up with their rakes and clippers, whatever they might think they need, but something that's meant to be especially a let's let's explore our forestry plan day or something where we need people to come for a couple of hours. And one of the objectives of that will be to here's what the plan says, here's what we need to look for. Now let's all walk in the woods and try to identify those types of things. Not that we'll necessarily do everything that we might identify, but we've picked candidates, and that's the day's work, right? I mean,
right.
the 2 hours work or whatever it is, or 3 hours
Yeah.
work, whatever it
Okay.
is.
So
And
that means
we have lots of rolls of yellow tape that people can wrap around trees and whatever, and then
right.
after that we can follow up and decide what to do next.
Does that make sense to you, everyone? And that approach that can start in the barn with the distribution of the forest with the plan.
Yeah,
So it's not, follow us and we'll show you, but they actually see there is a forest stewardship plan, and this is what we're now going
right.
to
And then
be.
flagging the couple of relevant sections for that particular exercise, so people aren't overwhelmed by a 30-page
Right.
plan. You can read it all if you want, but here's the parts we're going to focus on for this exercise.
Hmm. Well, again, we copy those pages, and hand them
Mhm.
out, right? So again, it is a workshop. It's similar to what's going to happen at the Winter Sow again next, in January. It's a workshop about something that is going to bring in people. And then if we have also, as the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee, also worked out what phase 2 is, i.e. the implementation of that and a time to do that. So let's say, for example, one of these things happens around um, April, where we know that the weather is going to be iffy, but we can start and we can do the quote workshop part in the barn. Then out you come with your wellies on, and even if it's raining a bit, you're in the woods, so you can do that. You're not going to get soaked. And then maybe May there is, an actual. This is what's going to happen on this day, and we make sure that that's carefully managed. Yeah, so it's an A/B 1-2 part. For which maybe nobody shows up for the second part except you guys. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to keep you all alive and healthy for a long time here. Right? But at the same time, we have to be reaching out more in terms of educating, and that worked with the pollinator garden. It really did.
Do we follow up with people who've come for volunteer sessions? For example, I remember when we had, not the last one, the one before that, a young woman arrived whose name I won't mention on videotape, who lives in my apartment complex. And, I thought, oh, she seems really enthusiastic and energetic, and she's really working hard. Never saw her again. Occasionally I see her in the hall, but I don't feel I can really approach her about this because I
Uh,
don't know her and I don't have an official connection
right.
with her. I'm just wondering, do we follow up with people who've been here before and invite them to things or find out what their experience is like? I don't know. I'm just making this
I
up, but
think
I
that's
just wonder about
it's a
volunteer
good point.
recruitment and how we think through how, these kind of one-time people, do we need to be doing more with them? And I'm not trying to put more work on you, Gloria, but I'm
No,
just
I think
wondering
you're
out loud,
absolutely
what do we
right.
need to do?
I mean, you're absolutely spot on, Dean, here. I do believe we have not sufficiently followed up. What we do say and have been saying is, would you like to go on the MailChimp list, right? Um, by definition, they get the information then. So, but if they didn't sign up to go on the MailChimp list, we have lost them. You're right. We have
But
not followed up.
Do they need a phone
ideally,
call? Oh,
ideally, what
sorry.
we need to get to and how we get there is the puzzle we haven't been able to solve for years. Is we have a handful right here of people who came in some years ago. we understand the rules of it is town property, and the rules is to go out there and actually have keys to the barn, have access to the tools, have the knowledge to supervise things and supervise other people. There's a fair amount of on-the-job training we have to do. And then technically you have to be on this committee also, unless you're out there under supervision. To find those kinds of people, we need to find a few more of those. And the trouble is, you need to find somebody who's willing and available to commit to putting in, not a lot, but a few hours a month, a couple of days at a time, a couple of hours here and there, like we do, as opposed to just turn up for one event and then wait till another event is posted,
Right.
which is something entirely
Yep.
different. Those are good too,
Absolutely.
but that's not what we need.
I think,
So,
may I suggest, I think we're talking about different levels of engagement, and we do need to hash this out. I mean, I've just plunged it at you right now, and I'm suggesting that we hash this out at our next meeting, that we look at, there is, yes, the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee, and no volunteer work can be done without at least one member of that. So we are looking, over a period of time, hopefully before we all kick off, our clogs, to have more people coming on board. But there are several layers, and we did briefly mention that we talked about stewards, but I think what I'm suggesting that we consider for the next, between now and spring, is this educative process by which time we're introducing people to what it actually means to do stewardship of open space, and in this case, the woodlands, i.e., the white pines. So, and what I would suggest, and we can send round a discussion on this before our next meeting, was you brainstorm the different levels whereby people can become maybe just more regular worker bees, right? Or whether we're starting to try and really recruit the next Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee. And I think that I would suggest it's a multi-layered endeavor. And
the problem with the regular work, the problem with the regular worker bees, it is exactly what I need. I agree. The problem to solve, the puzzle to solve, is finding people who are available at sort of random times when the weather is okay, when the heat's not
Right.
unbearable, when it's not a thunderstorm, who
Right.
can be around when one of us is also
Yeah.
around, because people can't
It's
go up on their own,
Yeah. It's a big puzzle to solve.
Yeah, right.
Definitely big puzzle to solve, because if you look at it that way, by definition, then it's almost invariably going to come down to people who don't have day jobs.
That's what I was
And
just
again,
thinking. Yeah.
actually, I hate to say it, I like to think there's a whole lot more volunteers out there than there are. I mean, there should be, but people who are younger than us, for the most part, not knocking them all. I mean, we've got grandkids and whatever. They're all taking kids to sports and band practice and shopping here and there and whatever. Some of us get to a certain age
Yep.
where we're not doing as much of that anymore. And then next thing you know, we're not have a day job anymore, and we're sort of free to come and go anytime, 7 days a week, depending on
Right.
the weather and the calendar. So that sort of makes people in early retirement age sort of a good target age to get at. But then again, we have some others who don't turn up for meetings but can turn up after work. I'm thinking of Ray in particular, who, knows what he's doing and turns up when he can, and when he does, he works like a house on fire. But again, that's
Yeah,
it's
I think we have to enable all sorts, because we don't know how people will develop over time. So that's why I'm suggesting to start with, probably a 2-part program in the spring, which I really like the idea, what you said, Jim, we bring them into the barn, we say, this is what it's going to be, and we advertise it as that and that alone, right? Not to just come on to Rauscher Farm and volunteer and do anything you like, but we focus it on saying this is going to be a session from such a time to such a time on the Rauscher Farm Forest Stewardship Plan, right? And we're going to introduce you to it, and then we're going to show it, give you actual concrete examples in the field, i.e., off to the white pines, mark trees, and do whatever. And then the next session is to implement some of that. But in a way, I agree, we can't have, well, I don't know if we can have people girdling. See, that's what I'm not sure about. If you don't teach people, how can you ever have it other than you guys until you shuffle off your mortal clogs? That's what I'm.
I think first we need to do a couple ourselves, because we haven't done it before. We know how to do it in
Right.
theory. Theory is one thing, practice is another. And then the other thing is when the time comes, there's going to be two steps to it. The first is just with a pull saw, what am I thinking for, like a buck saw, just cutting a band around the tree, maybe one and then another one a foot higher. So you have like a width in between of, 8 or 10 inches
Mhm.
between those two cuts.
Mhm.
Then you need to chip out all the bark between, those two layers. So that part with the saw, you could pretty much have somebody do as long as they're using, gloves and whatever. The
And
part with the part with the hatchet, we really want to be careful who's doing that because there is more risk of somebody getting hurt. And like
right,
I said, I like axes better than hatchets for most things, but not for cutting a band in a tree that's 4 feet off the ground. And the
right.
trouble with the hatchet, once again, you got one hand on it. Where's that other hand? If you're not careful, it's in the wrong place. On an
But
axe, you get both hands on the handle.
let me suggest something. You guys are already doing this. When we do the volunteer days, you know, Dave, you assign yourselves to a group of volunteers, and you basically become the team leader of that. So you are already doing a certain level of this already. Like I remember, Dave up on the top with the rusty fencing with Sarah, Susan, right? I remember Dean, with a contingent from mainly from I think the Icon Museum. I mean, you guys you already practiced at taking over, taking a group of volunteers and then having them work in a safe and responsible manner. So it's not something that you guys aren't experienced. And I agree with what Jim is saying. There's certain parts of the girdling that could be done under supervision by people who aren't, like supervised by you, but aren't you. But then maybe, then the dangerous hacking out process comes down to you, maybe. So I'm saying we have all the experience of doing this. We need to connect the dots. That's my sense, and to work on having groups of people, even if they only do come once, but we follow up. Dean's point, we follow up with them, which we're not good at. My bad. I was thinking, oh, sign up is enough. But obviously, if Dean is saying what he's just described, it's not enough. I need to know precisely who they are, whether they're signing up for the newsletter or not, and their
And
contact
maybe,
information, and we
and
follow up.
maybe and maybe we need to have, thank you. And maybe we need to have spread the work out, Gloria. Maybe we need, when we do these volunteer things, we get everybody's phone number, and then afterward we divide up the people and we call them up and we have a little rubric that says things like, "Hey, thanks for coming. I just appreciate some feedback on our on your recent volunteer work day," and just have a conversation where we ask like, well, "How was it for you? What did you like? What didn't you like? What would be helpful next time we do this in
Yeah,
terms of
no,
getting
I
volunteers?"
agree. And like, for example, with, you guys who are doing it already with groups, if you're doing it with, quote, your group, they know you, right? So the woman, I'm coming back to you, Dean, because it's a great example. So the woman in your building, she came and she knows you. So you're
Right.
the perfect liaison back to her, that sort of thing. So even when we divide it up, if we can with people who've already spent a couple of hours with these people. Anyway, I do, let's move on from this, right? But let's really try and hash it out at our next meeting. And if we think that we have levels of, communicating experience and enthusiasm, we have follow up, and at least it's a start
Sounds good.
in the longer term process.
Sounds good. And I feel like we shouldn't put it all on you, Gloria.
Well, I'm not doing anything. I just watch you working. That's what,
Let's say,
you know.
no, not the jump, but the new website, which right now I'm trying to time when I can put it up without risking. I'm assuming that when I go to move it to a whole new location, everything's going to go kablooey and go down for some days or a week or something. I'm trying not to have that happen. The new site is pretty much close to finished right now. I've got a few sections to finish, but one of the two sections I have to finish is the one on volunteers, and I was already thinking on that. So I've been putting a couple of pictures to describe two levels of volunteers. We need people who can, our events that we have, our scheduled events throughout the years, and also if you're interested in becoming, the goal, if you have the time or the willingness to possibly be available to, put in, a few hours a month, a couple of hours a month, on depending on the weather and who else is available, like some of us do. That's a different level of volunteer, in which
Right.
case, call us or email here.
So we give them a name. We give them a name, stewards.
Mm-hmm.
We give them a category, we give them a name, and I think
I
this
think
is
that's right. So we have like the event volunteers, and then we have potential stewards or whatever,
right,
steward
right,
recruits.
right,
And
and
sometimes people will grow into a role from a
Yeah, right.
lesser role.
Yeah.
right, but we don't want to tell them you're coming and being a steward, and by the way, you're going to dedicate the rest of your life to this because
Yeah. We have to break it
you'll
to them
have them
gently.
running from the exit between the pine trees, right? So,
But enjoy. It's so much fun to be at the furthest end of the field, running out of gas, and there's a thunderstorm coming. You haven't lived till you've done
no,
that.
you don't. You don't share that. You don't share that with them. No.
Wait
No.
till a
Well,
belt breaks and you're dragging a
There you
400-pound
go.
machine up a hill.
Uh,
Yeah, we've all done that too.
you guys are
In
so
fact,
funny.
in
You're
fact, I think
really so funny.
Alan did it with the handles breaking. I remember you managed to limp back to the barn with
Right.
one functioning handle out of two. I think.
Stop,
Right?
stop. No, 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 no. I would suggest holding back on all these wonderful shared moments for a bit. Right.
Then for graduate school, we'll explain how to disassemble the machine in the field and bring it back in pieces, which you've also done, right?
But okay. So, all right. So we're going to think this through, right? And we're going to shoot for at least doing a test run in the spring. So if we do a test run, right, around Earth Day, we're also doing something else around Earth Day, but that's inside and warm and cozy in the library, let me tell you. But if we find an outdoor date, right, sometime in April, and then we see how we might follow it up in May. I mean, what did we learn? How do we think that next B part should come, right? All right. And you guys think about this level of, you're the ones with the experience, you're the ones that are delegated by the town to do this, right? And someone has to be there. Okay. I'm going to leave it now. Let's brainstorm and let's come up with a concrete plan and date in January for April. Or at least I might try and lock in a date and then say, how about this, right? And then the follow-up. How do we conduct the follow-up? All right, shall we move on, everyone? I think this is exciting, by the way, so I just wanted you to know that. Deafening roar of silence from all of you, but never mind.
I'm trying not to say anything lewd, that's all.
What you're talking about, a lot of what we're talking about here is succession planning. And voluntary organizations hate talking about succession planning.
Right.
And it's a lot of work, and it's thoughtful, and it involves lots of doing things that you haven't had to do before, getting out of your comfort zone, recruiting other people to kind of help you. It's a whole thing. Succession plan is a whole deal. And that's what we're talking about. It's super important.
Yeah. But we backed into it and experienced it already with the 2+ years of the pollinator project. In spite of ourselves, in spite of me, I backed into it and thought, oh, this is, by the time I got to those last 2 sessions, I thought, oh, and you look at the photographs and it's all there in the process, right? From the kids helping to cut, and bouncing around and getting bored very fast, the first turf cutting, through to all the other things we did, including some of the not so great outcomes but we won't go there. Okay, so let's move on, gang. Yeah. So, all right. I haven't had time to finding someone to talk to in National Grid. Believe me, it's like trying to communicate with Mars. So, or if you've ever had to sit, as I listen to Jim sometimes, and I'm sure Alan and Dean and Dave, when you're trying to get past, the automatic recorded messages to actually speak to a real person about a situation that you have to almost, give up every other activities for at least 24,
Then get
48
disconnected and start over again. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So, I'm still working at it. All right, so moving along here. No, haven't done the historical research. No update. Okay, I'm following the agenda here. The one update I do have, though, about the farmhouse is, yes, as you see in the discussion document, I did formally request the winterization of the farmhouse via the DPW at the beginning of November. And Ben Sund is the person who's experienced in doing this. And he's the one that, tried to help us with the pollinator garden by cutting the. Anyway, then he found out that he didn't have a key. He'd given his key away to the plumber who fixed a leak in spring. So he got a key. I dropped one off. We had a spare key. So I dropped
And
it off.
in the interim, before Gloria gave him that key and before he shut off the water, I did go inside the house and shut off the water to both of those outside faucets, then open the taps on the outside to make sure those outside pipes were drained.
Okay,
Thanks for doing that.
great. And also, I'm not sure who want the hoses, but after that, the hoses got wound up, right? And
The one on the front is just disconnected because it's mounted on a post. The one in the back, yours truly managed to drag all the way up by his own little lonesome, which, next year I'm going to look for another volunteer. Might want to do that. That
you
would be a
might
good thing
find
for a
you might
volunteer.
find one of the stewards can do that.
A hose dragging volunteer. We need that. Somebody who wants to be a fireman.
So, Gloria, who is Ben Sund? Is he in the
Ben Sund,
DPW?
yeah, he works for the DPW, Alan.
Okay.
He also has a farm himself, small farm. So he has also equipment. And I was never sure when he came down to help with the pollinator project if it was town equipment or his own equipment. But before Chris McGowan resigned as someone who had been running the DPW for quite some years, before Chris resigned, he had trained Ben up into how to winterize the farmhouse because Chris McGowan, as the director of DPW, had done it winterized it and then released, then blown out the antifreeze in spring. So he trained Ben, and then Ben has done it ever since. I'm not sure how willingly. I think he got to be the stuckey when Chris left and Kevin Bartlett took over. So I contacted Kevin Bartlett and he said, Ben will do it. And then, Ben has got my cell phone. So if there's anything untoward, he can contact me, which is what he did in the spring to say, whoops, we've got a leak, we need a plumber. And that was very fast, very quickly fixed because the facilities director, I reported to him and he immediately got someone there. So it was all done extremely, very fast turnaround, and the town was really very good about it. So,
Thanks.
So moving on, so the farmhouse, okay. We just want to, I said here, the pollinator nursery garden, we want, a winter watch. We want to, it'll be me. I'll pop down every so often just to make sure, if it's covered in snow, well, that's it, it's covered in snow. But as things begin to melt, I want to see what happens, even if there's snow on the ground and what else is happening, what's really.
And I'm anxious to see if those new willows we planted late in the year make it through the winter and pop up in the
Right.
spring. Fingers crossed.
Right. And so thanks for the hoses. Okay. Okay, related to the, to the native plants nursery garden. And also it comes under the programs for 2026. There is going to be a repeat of the winter snow. And that's been confirmed with Freddie and Giancarlo. That's the 24th of January in the library. Christine has created a flyer for it, and I have sent all the materials to the library at this point. Once that registration page is up and available, then Jim takes that URL, the link, and puts the program onto the Rauscher Farm website, which is how we did it last time. So the flyer will go up, and underneath it will say, click here to register or whatever, and that will go directly to the library's registration. And that way we can keep a tab of numbers.
You know what time that is that day, Gloria?
Yes, it's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Thank you.
on the 24th. And if you take a glance at I think I put it into the discussion document. I can't quite remember if I did now.
I might have
Yes.
overlooked it. I didn't see
Yes.
a time on there. No, I don't see a time. But thank
Okay.
you.
Under
I want to make sure I
programs
had
on
it
discussion.
down.
Oh, but instead of putting PM, I put PP. So just know that PP means PM. Okay. So in the discussion document I sent over, it lists January 24th, 11 a.m. to 1 PP, meaning PM.
Oh,
It's a
I'm
two-hour.
looking up
It's
under the
down near the
nursery
bottom.
garden
It's
thing.
down
That's
near the
down below.
bottom.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And that was popular last year, right? Alan, Alan, I
Yeah.
used the photographs taken from first time we did it last year. We had a generic picture, but I took a lot of pictures. Jim took photographs. So the flyer is now a sequence of 3 pictures that sort of shows the progress, the process. So Alan, you have been immortalized on a flyer,
Oh my.
which you will see. It's ready. It's too late. You can't protest anymore because it's
Oh, gee, I don't know how I'll
it's
be
you.
able to
It's you
sleep
and the
tonight.
milk cartons. You and the milk cartons.
Yeah, there we go. At least I'm not in the post office wall, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's hard to know so far, but
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
you can't
there's
be too sure
always,
these days.
So
yeah,
that
that's right.
one, it's in motion, gang. It's already in motion. And that, just FYI, we will have that up on the website very soon once I get the confirmation from the library that they've posted it. And then I will send out an e-newsletter before Christmas saying save the date. Great thing. And then I'll do another one after Christmas. Okay. So I know that you'll be really thrilled. Alan, I can send it to you now and you can print it off and send it out as Christmas cards.
I know. I can wait.
Are you sure? Okay. All right, moving along here. All right, so our usual invasive species. Okay, so I just confirmed in the discussion document after our somewhat lively, or shall I say prickly conversation about the bullfinch thistles at the October meeting, that they are just going to get the same punishment that everybody else gets who dares to try and invade.
And I
So
did mow down all those ones around the garden, even though it was with a flat tire on the billy goat, which I then sort of limped back to the barn and parked it because the machine was almost impossible to stir. But the billy goat and I persevered, and we did get those thistles down. But we just need to be on them throughout the year, every year now, to keep them, because they're just they all came into that
evil.
load of dirt.
Yes,
They came into that load of loam. There was some in that field before, but nothing like that.
that loam was unfortunate.
Yeah, right.
It brought forth much. Well, the thistles are now the same as the multiflora rose,
Yeah, just mow them until they finally, if not
Give
give
up.
up, at least retreat.
Right. Okay, so the
guys.
other thing about the invasive species is the beetles. I have placed the order. I mean, it was okayed. Expenditure has been okayed by the Conservation Commission, and I placed the order and had it acknowledged. So we'll do that again. And then, out of the blue, I got a message from a woman called Emily. She's an Emily. It's a Y on her name. Okay, Emily Kula. She's conservation agent for the town of Wayland, which she wanted. Someone had mentioned Rauscher Farm and what we were doing, and she wanted to know what we were doing and how successful it was. So I'm scheduled to have a Zoom conversation with her tomorrow when I will share all of our
Oh, I gotta drop
experiences.
off.
Okay.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah,
Thank you,
bye,
Dave.
Dave. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Yeah,
Bye.
so long.
Bye, all.
Bye, Dave.
Bye, Dave. So I will share our experience. I'll particularly want to give her the link to that chapter in the book, because that was the one that gave, the data, the scientific data that says this takes as long as it takes. like you're not going to see much for 7 years, but don't panic. So I will send her anything we have and explain what we are doing, and then, and and if they're interested, I have to explain there is only one vendor, so if they're going to do it, they need to put an order in now. And then if she wants, she can come or wait a year and watch us doing beetles at the end of May. So
I'm curious,
if you,
how did she get your name,
I
Gloria?
don't know that. I will ask her tomorrow. She said someone had said that, one of those, she didn't specifically say,
Yeah.
unless somebody might have seen it, because on the Rauscher Farm website, there is a thing that says about Rauscher Farm. It's a PowerPoint. If you download that, you'll see
Mhm.
the Purple Loosestrife project, which
The new
mentions the
maybe.
beetles.
website has, more and fancier version of that too. So there'll
Maybe
be
some
more of
web,
that.
she's a conservation agent, you said.
She is a
or
concept, which
so,
means she will have.
yeah. So she might have done some query that
Yeah.
ended up
The one thing I can share
on
with
our
you,
website.
what you're asking on, because when we started all this, there was a big push around the 20 aughts in Massachusetts, and there were programs, right? And then they all went away, and there was everywhere we tried reaching out to all the likely suspects who had done something about it. There was no one there. There was no historical memory there. And we started off with a woman from Fish and Wildlife who had been involved, but she was no longer involved and hadn't been involved for some years. So it was really, oh, what happened to everyone? And here's Purple Loosestrife, taking over the world like the day of the Triffids. But so we had to go and dig and do whatever research. So I'm happy to try and share all of that with someone, because
That's great.
presumably she's coming up with not much at the same as like we did, because there's not much out there. And the one thing that this professor at Cornell said, don't you can if you think you're going to chemically do it, think again, because it'll all surge back.
There's plenty of loosestrife in Wayland because the Sudbury River crosses
through.
Route 20 with
Yeah.
all that flat
Yeah.
land.
Well,
Yeah.
just drive out by Bolton Flats in the summertime. It's everywhere. And
Yeah. So we'll reach out the hand of beetle as much as we can, right? So
Yeah. Good.
okay. So that's invasive species. Yeah. Okay, invasive control, right. Two-part program. Okay. The pasta clamshell pond, So I explained in the discussion document that, so my bad, I blew our November meeting because I did not take into account the November the 11th closure, and so we didn't have enough out. Usually I send that out on Thursday, the week before, and I was just caught up in other things, and I did it and sent it off to the town over the weekend, which means they didn't get it in time because of the closure, right? Because everything closed down for November the 11th. So anyway, now then what happened? So the October meeting of the Conservation Commission, which followed, a couple of weeks after ours, and I always push about, how to, explain to them that they are going to have to put their name to a warrant article, because it has to be a department that does that. It can't be me. It's not a citizen's petition. This is town-owned property, etc. So, and I said at that point, I thought maybe, based on that conversation I'd had with the person from Haley Ward, that we were talking about project that would cost about, maybe 200 versus 140, and then we had this cost of the person managing it. So we have 144, and I was just thinking, rough guess, I think we need another 100K. But Sean Kerrigan was very helpful. He's a member of the Conservation Commission because they were short-handed. He's also a selectman. And so the conversation with him in October was, okay, Gloria, you can't just put something on a warrant unless you can show actually who told you how much it was going to cost. Now, I had pushed for this in March with the Permanent Building Committee and said, well, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get an estimate? How am I going to get this? And they said, oh, well, I said, well, can you direct me? Do I need an engineer? Or, well, yes, me. But they didn't want to talk to me very much of that. And I get it. They were up to their eyeballs with the school, and now they're up to their eyeballs with the library. But the long and short of it is, then I had a conversation with, so Sean said, I'll help you, work out how to do this. But in the meantime, then we, Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee report, was missed off their November meeting, their agenda, which meant I couldn't turn up and talk about it, but because it wasn't on the agenda. So in the meantime, I had a conversation with Dave Sadowski. And what Dave said is, no, you don't want an engineer. Engineers don't know the cost of things. They know how to do things, but what you need is a construction person. So, and he mentioned immediately somebody who'd been very helpful in the past with this project. He mentioned Sean Kilcoyne, and he also mentioned Crossman. Now, so those are the two names I have. I need now to report this to the Conservation Commission and saying, here's what I am proposing the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee does. We approach, and my first choice would be Sean Kilcoyne, because this poor man, has seen this plan over the last decade from me, and they helped cost it way back when it came out at like $100,000, right? This is, it's gone on a long time. So I am proposing, with your blessing, that at the Conservation Commission meeting, which now I have to find out when it is because they keep changing the date and no one tells me, to say, this is what the Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee proposes. We will approach a construction person. And the point is that both Kilcoyne and Crossman do have licenses to do town projects too. In other words, they're already on the town's books as, they'll come in and do things, right? So because poor Sean Kilcoyne is such a nice man and hasn't realized he needs to run really fast when he sees me coming, I would propose him as the first point of reaching out. And then if not, try and go to Crossman, who I don't actually know personally, but now he is on the Permanent Building Committee. He's only just joined. So, maybe there's a bit of leverage there to get them to look at this and say, cost it, right? Give me an estimated cost of the project. So that's where we are. I am finally somewhat optimistically hopeful this might inch its way forward. Armed with that estimated cost in the next several weeks, then I will be back in January to the Conservation Commission and say, okay, here it is. There needs to be an article on the warrant for town meeting on June 1st one, and it has to be in your name. So I will, on behalf of the Rauscher Farm Management, we'll help draft it, because then it has to go to the attorneys and and to go to the FinCom and all of that, all the stuff that I have done several times in the past, even on this same project. So that's where we are, right? We get someone to say it's going to cost X. And then from that cost added to 144, that's the total cost. And out of that total cost comes, and it's the only estimate I've had, 37,000 for someone to manage the project. An independent contract, which is what happened in April. But it was only one person. I think there should be more quotes on that. So that's your update, everybody.
Nice work. Wow.
Wow.
Yes. It's been very much push, push, go backwards, push, push, go backwards, push, push. but it was literally, Sadowski said, oh, no, because I'm thinking an engineer, what's that going to, no, he said, you don't need, no, we want a construction company. Who knows what it will cost to do it? So, do I have your blessing to go forth with that for the Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't need a motion. I'm just updating them. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Moving along. Like a herd of turtles here. Okay. Okay. That was the update on Rauscher Park. Okay. Opportunity. Okay. Scientists. Well, I have not heard anything from the school, the Clinton High School, about doing the pollinator project. So at this point, I can only presume that they are not ready yet to do it for this next year. I will reach out and ask and saying, I guess not having heard that you're wishing to do this, this is either A, you're not interested in doing it, or B, this is the timing is not right. I will try and suggest that perhaps the timing is not right, to which they can say, yes, that's right, the timing is not right, because then I can go back, we can go back again, and say, well, how about 2027? Because there was enthusiasm for this. But, we know we cannot, there's a lot that the schools is doing what the schools is doing, and, they would need someone who would actually be the teacher who would manage it versus the head of the site, So I don't know. So I'll reach out and say, Happy New Year. Haven't heard anything, so I'm sort of guessing the timing isn't good for you for this year for a pollinator garden on the schools, although I did understand there was this, a level of enthusiasm. So let me know, and maybe we can do it the following year. Would that work for you guys?
Yes.
You want to close the door. You see what I mean? I will die optimistic. I'm not going to have a gravestone, but if I was, it would be. She didn't see problems, she saw puzzles to solve. She died optimistic. All right. Okay. You're going quiet. I will keep going. All right. So that was the volunteer scientist. There was the promo stuff. Yes. Communication outreach. All the usual stuff is going along. Christine has come up with a draft flyer to replace the one that we've used this year. So we've got dates on it. We actually put in the dates, but because sometimes one of the dates I thought would work for something is not going to work, so we have to just tighten up the dates. And then what we will do is then we will go to the CGCT, the Rauscher Farm Fund, and ask for money to print them so that we have something to distribute during the course of the year. And you know the one I'm talking about, the double-sided one, in your own time and events, right? And then we have something to put in the box as well on the side of the barn. So we will have that in the very near future. All right, even if we don't have all of the dates on it for the next year, we'll have enough. Okay, moving along. Time for another Rauscher Farm fun facts. I want to do the opossums, but I'm going to hold them off until tick season. They belong in tick season, so I have to find a December fun fact. All right. And again, I haven't managed to yet get confirmation from Cheryl Hughes. Okay. What else am I missing here? We'll have to choose the story walk book. We still have to take the story walk down.
Can I just suggest, hopefully it's raining right now. It's very slippery out there. When I really just need two of us to go out and taking it down is so much easier than putting it up. Just a power drill in a box to put them in, and work your way from the up from the long way back in again. And it could be me, and if
I can probably help you, Jim,
yeah,
next week.
Dean, I think you're probably off the watch list because you're going into
You are. Dean's off.
For
Alan and we can pick a day depending on the weather. I'm not available tomorrow. I'm meeting a friend for lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the
Yeah,
weather's like
how
on
about
Friday.
next week? I can't
Next week.
this
Yeah.
weekend, but sometime during the week.
Okay.
And hopefully the more recent snow will have melted by then and we don't have more, because right now slipping and sliding up and down that hill doesn't appeal to me. So
Yeah, for now, I'm holding off on projects.
I
Yeah, you
think you
have to.
better. Yes.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
on,
We
you're on
actually.
you're on the short-term disabled list for now, okay? And
Okay.
then when you come back, we'll send you to Worcester for, rehab, to the
Don't
Right.
forget to get the book of the comment stuff back too, because that's I
yeah,
use that for
we'll get that, yeah.
what?
Yeah, we'll get that, yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
when you come back, you have to go to the Woosocks for a month before you can go back onto back up to the bigs.
That's right.
I had two friends of mine from Wisconsin drive out last week, and they came and we walked every trail in Rauscher Farm I
Really?
think the day after it snowed, or 2 days after.
Yeah,
They had brought boots
yeah,
out with them, and they're Wisconsin guys, and they loved the farm, and they really enjoyed the story walk. They didn't read it. They didn't read every page, but they stopped here and there to watch it. I thought it was a good book this year
Mm.
that you chose. Yeah,
Thank you, Alan.
particularly
Well, I
good.
need to come up with some suggestions for you all to take a look at, And again, it's the tying it into the nature that does that makes it, I think, very special. Um, so yeah, it's time for. And I usually ask, friends who are children's librarians and friends of friends who have friends who are children's librarians, sort of. Um, so that, but I do need to tie that up again basically by the next meeting. I have a lot to do by the next meeting. I have been somewhat engaged with the library project. Okay, so that is pretty much. So what did we do? We did communication, yes. So there'll be the newsletter out before Christmas about things, and then one after, all around the winter. So I don't know of any violations. Dave hasn't sent anything over, and he's usually eyes on the ground. So fingers crossed. Um, the one thing I did, because I know you all read a lot. So one of the projects that is listed on the discussion document is, again, nature's imagination, this whole idea of people who, are grappling with mental health challenges, right? I mean, the studies all show that being in nature definitely has a quantitative positive effect. I mean, it has been scientifically documented. Um, quite how that would translate, I don't know, but um, I do have a contact with an organization that looks into these things. So I'm going to continue plodding along with that. But if you see any reports, if you have what you think are any networking connections with people who work in the mental health field, and are also aware of the value of connecting with nature, I'd really appreciate if you just reach out to me, even if you don't know if they'd really be that interested, but just to be able to brainstorm with people who, and again, it's quote, subject matter experts. It's the way we approach everything on Rauscher Farm. And this is no different, looking for subject matter experts who work or who run support groups or who are well connected, etc., in the mental health field. That would be really, really very helpful. So I'm throwing it out there to your collective research skills,
Okay.
Because you guys are really good at this. You find things, and then you tell me, and I really appreciate it. And this is just quite what form, how we would fashion something that could be truly, truly valuable to that particular community would, I think, be very important.
Here's just one quick initial thought. I don't know. I don't know how much contact you have with the senior center. I don't have much, but I know some seniors have seasonal depression. I wonder if
That's
the senior centers
that's a really good idea, and
someplace.
I know the director of the senior center quite well, Laura Taylor. So that's a really good idea. I could reach out to her and see, even if it's not specifically Clinton and that senior center, she might be a resource for people too. Nanny too. That's
And how about I know there's at least one Alcoholics Anonymous chapter here in Clinton, and
ah,
perhaps
that's
well, people like to
yes,
walk. They like to get outside. Uh,
yes.
there might be people
Are
there.
they affiliated with the hospital? Do you know?
I don't. I don't think so. I know that there's an Al-Anon group. Al-Anon's for
Yeah.
children and relatives of alcoholics, friends of alcoholics. They meet at Clinton Hospital, I think, but I don't think they're really affiliated with the hospital.
Okay. I'll see. So yeah, if you find any contact information, Alan, if you do, or if any of us do, um, but yeah,
I have a
that's a re
contact. I have a contact for the Al-Anon group that meets in Clinton. I could give you offline. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Senior Center, Laura Taylor. I mean, you all I think you are all familiar with the studies that for children show that, you have children in the classroom, you take them outside of the classroom into, outside nature, whatever, and then you bring them back in, their test scores go up.
Mm.
That's documented, you know. So, I mean, I just think it's this is a really, really important part of, like I say, our mission, but basically it's a really important mission of open space. I mean, this is the stuff that has been proven to be
Do,
beneficial.
do the do the Clinton Public Schools ever take kids to Rauscher Farm? Has that ever happened?
Alan, you have no idea how hard I've tried on this. You have no idea. I'm
Well,
sorry,
okay.
I don't mean to be cocky about it. One of the problems is it's the cost of a school bus. Even
Yeah.
if there was all the will in the world, it used to be, we have had, way back when we had some school buses and children up, when it cost like $34 for a bus. It now costs apparently $500, even if you went 100 yards down the road and came back. And then the other difficulty, and I really get this because I do have teacher friends who are, you know, they have so much having to teach to the test, and with everything hinging on quote test results.
Mhm.
Um, the idea of actually leaving the school building. Now, sports is okay because they're not actually, they're not leaving the grounds. They're going to their locker room, putting on their togs and, kicking or, or running or whatever there is down there. So all of that is happening. But I have tried over the years, Alan, I've tried reaching out to the principals of the three schools, the elementary, elementary, middle school, and high school. I've tried reaching out to literally individual teachers, like science teachers, or so all that whole thing. Um, Nothing, just
Yeah.
nothing. Which is why I got so excited about the pollinator garden at the high school, thinking, "Wow, something." Um, and I get it. I do get it because I was thinking the pollinator garden gets around the difficulty of the transportation issue because it's literally on the
Yeah.
same site as of the playing fields across the road from the high school. But again, even if the head of a department, even if the principal is for it, they have to then find someone who genuinely wants to take it on, a teacher, right? And do the data, like Dean said, the
Build a
organizing, the
program around
whatever,
it. Yeah.
right? And also
Yeah.
taking time out of their teaching curriculum to do something that's not in their teaching curriculum. So it's very, very difficult. It's
And I think
very
you
Well,
said it
difficult.
also.
I'm not surprised that you've tried to make something happen there.
For several years, and Jim will vouch for quite several years, we did a week-long program, ran in the mornings during the summer school, during the holiday, during the break. And the first couple of years we did it just on our own. And then we actually said, well, it makes sense to roll it into the summer enrichment program of the schools, which, how they do like 6 or 7 weeks of summer enrichment, and they're happy to have someone come in and say, I'd like to do this program and all the rest. And that worked well for quite a few years. But then what happened was it literally turned into babysitting. So even though I could clearly stipulate this is only suitable for ages so and so to so and so, parents must be so desperate, for someone to look after a younger sibling or a younger child, that they would just sign them up anyway.
Or
And
sign up one and then bring the sibling.
sign up
Yeah.
one and bring the siblings. So it just and the only way it really worked, and I was so fortunate, is I had two dear friends, they're two sisters, they live around the corner. One is a teacher in the elementary school, a wonderful teacher, and the other is her sister, who is like a teacher's aide. Well, she's now retired, but they ran the program with me, and Jim ran it in terms of the heavy lifting, you know, and the photographing and all that sort of stuff. So it basically took a team of 4 to pull off 1 week.
Imagine
Then,
you'd be like standing in the road watching for escapees and whatever, and there's
yes,
something going on in the
that's
lawn,
right. They were
whatever.
known as runners. We had one little boy, and it would be like runner at 9 o'clock, and then Jim would come pounding down the road after this kid.
And the kids on the edge of the pond fishing for tadpoles and whatever, making sure that there's one of us there to fish them out if anybody fell in and whatever.
But so it worked great for a few years, and then it didn't, and then Kobe came along.
Yeah.
But it was because of the real generosity of a teacher friend and a teacher, education system related, her system, who are both, they're both close friends of mine and Jim's now. But if it wasn't for them, you know, and then the parents were just, oh, I don't care what you say. I'm bringing my 3-year-old. We're not set up to take care of a 3-year-old
Yeah.
and an 8, 9-year-old as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And I can fully appreciate the plight of parents who have young kids and haven't had any
yeah,
sleep in 4 years, but that's not our problem to solve.
yeah.
You
And I
know.
can throw it, and the cost of putting a child in daycare. Absolutely. I mean, so it was a hard one to let go, Alan, because,
Yeah.
we believe passionately in if we don't take the kids out into nature, why will they come to love it and care about it and be engaged in it? Which is why I, keep shoving the volunteer days, even when sometimes we get, you know, almost nobody. And then another time we'll get a whole pile of people.
Yeah.
Or, Dean's point, or they'll come once and not again. But, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe this is more like uh, sociological conversation is, and maybe it's just my imagination, but people seem to sample something once and then, okay, I've done that. I don't need to do it again. And I actually saw that in the Nature of the Imagination, the photography program that we did,
Yeah.
right? Which I had planned as 3 components. So there was the one component in the library with the photography, with basically the photography class
Oh,
with
yeah.
Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the second component was on Rauscher Farm. And then, of course, the weather made it impossible. Then there was a rain date, and the weather made that impossible. And we ended up doing a Zoom for that second component. At that point, though, the numbers, okay, now we get to the exhibit, which, and your pictures were lovely, really lovely. So thank you for that. Then we get to the exhibit in the library when I had people who said they would, out of that original group, they did want to put pictures in. But when it came down to it, most of them didn't. And I kept, I did ask them several times, please let me know, da 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 da. And even down to the last minute of the deadline for submitting the application, they went around and said, well, I haven't heard, are you going to? And then finally they might say, oh, well, I'm not going to do it now. So there's also for me, a learning curve about trying to do things that I want to do sequentially because I can say, oh, look, see how this is going to. But people aren't doing things that way anymore. They're going to, mainly experience them and move on, unless it's sports. And it's sports that really, really, and it's not just us talking about it, it's every single, whatever interest people have, trying to get people engaged, but, or even the
So,
churches, right?
but it's
Dean,
also like, kids sports have now become like a year-round thing. It used to be like after school you go to baseball or
yeah,
football practice. In the summer there might be some little league, which even when I was a kid, little league was pretty new. I'm that old, right? They were just inventing baseball. I mean,
right.
but now there are so many of these like paid leagues that people sign up for and the kids sign. Aside from the town teams and whatever, you have all these, you know, kid travel leagues that people pay for and whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a business.
There was a big
Um,
article, Jim and I read it and can't remember which paper it was in it, that talked about how only certain kids, because of the cost of these leagues and the going every and all of that, so you're talking about, they're not
a
available
lot
to
of
every
money.
kid.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, the one thing about sports in the public schools is they are accessible to every child in that school, you know. Um, So you can say that, that's a really, really good thing. And, Clinton does have excellent sports facilities now, in the last
Mm.
several years when the high school was built. I mean, you
Mhm.
have,
Those are beautiful fields. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
The track's really nice.
We've had
yes, track's really nice.
our middle grandson has been there for track meets for his school, and he's in college now, but he was at the regional school out in Oakmont. I mean, but they'd be at the having the track meets in Clinton. Not all of them, but
Uh,
that was part of the circuit they would do. They'd
Right. And
basically,
Mm.
baseball.
yeah,
Our,
right.
our grandsons
In fact,
played baseball
they had a
down
couple of
on
games they had a couple of games
it.
at Fuller Field.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was also, but, Ryan, their eldest grandson, was also baseball down on the high school
Yeah.
baseball pitch. So,
Yeah.
it's and I genuinely think that's great that every child has access to it versus these expensive leagues where
Yeah.
only a certain percentage of children can have access. But that
But I know having 3 grandsons who are now all, well, college age, as of next year, they're all college age. But I know uh, our daughter Laurie and her husband have basically spent the last, 20 years driving from event to event to event. And that's what parents do these days. When I was a kid, you get on your bicycle and went someplace you didn't go at all. But, times have changed.
so those it was called Nature Adventures on Rauscher Palm,
Mm.
those week-long things. I mean, they were
Mhm.
they were great and they were fun, but I don't think Jim and I could have done it on our own. I don't think it was
Yeah.
having that professional teacher
Mm.
And also the
they
professional teacher who can sort of look at a group and identify where the potential problems are and keep an eye on that one, because, they know it when they see it, they've been there before,
and they had all these wonderful techniques for,
Yes, right.
when the concentration went, they knew all these little
Yeah,
tricks to get the
yeah,
kids all, like, and
yeah,
I'd just go, oh wow, that's a great
yeah,
way to, you know, because again, every kid has a different attention span. Kids learn differently from each other. I mean, and I when say learn, I mean take in the case of Rauscher Farm, taking information difficult. I will share it with you. We have it's in this house. I have a giant green ring binder, and I'll show it to you another time. But I created a field notes of Rauscher Farm book each year, right? So it was a 3-ring binder, and the end of the sessions would always be, okay, now, collecting specimens, what did we find? Now we draw it. And then I hole punched everything into this ring binder. So each year there was a seasonal field notes of Rauscher
Nice.
Farm.
Yeah.
And I've
Each, and
got
each,
photos.
and, and each day's event was focused on a particular thing that you would then come back and document and put in the ring binder.
Right. And it didn't matter. It wasn't about artistic skill or anything like it. We just provided all this, and it made, the kids actually, oh, yes. And then, oh, it was also a form as well. The kid had to say what it was and where they had found it. So we treated them like, citizen scientists, even if they were
What
eight,
is it? Yeah.
right? 8, 9, 10. So they did that. And then eventually at 12 noon, the parents would roll up and take them away. This was all gathered around the picnic table. So they had done all of this stuff for hours, and then they had this really coming to a really focused thing. But
Mm.
I've got photographs of that too, which
I'm
I
sure
can.
they still remember that.
Well, funnily enough,
Yes.
yeah, I've had some kids who have now, the first batch of kids are now in college. So, anyway, but yeah,
Like me, they might
um,
still be in college for another 7 or 8 years.
but this is why I'm coming back to if that's no longer feasible on, that age group, this is when I come back to people with, mental health challenges. To reaching out to another demographic, and finding a way how to do that. So this is where the passion comes from. It's Rauscher Farm is not just a place that doesn't have houses on it. It's a place where it has the potential to enter into whichever age the demographic is, or whatever circumstances the demographic is, be it children or be it, So that's why that's where this particular project comes from. It comes from those nature adventures on Rauscher Farm.
Okay.
Yeah, enough.
Mhm.
So
Yep. Thanks.
it's
Well,
just
Alan, you and I can check in by
yeah,
email when we see what the weather looks like and what our
right.
schedules look like next week, and we can take
Okay.
that story walk down in an hour and a half, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I just say one thing for all of you? This is not what you do is phenomenal, because what you do is you are both taking care of nature, but by doing that, you are opening up nature to take care of other people,
Mhm.
right? So it's not just an endless stream of, food that people take, all the Facebook dinner plates, We couldn't
Yeah.
possibly do that because our food is so awful in this house. So, but it's not just it's not just, it is, and you can call it all sorts of other names, and we've all got names to name it. I had a wonderful thing today. I was at a memorial service of someone I've known for many years. I wasn't her bestie, but I did know her, right? And she had passed away. So I was down at the Bullfinch Church, and they're Unitarian, right? And I heard this wonderful way described as right at the end about us saying, well, we can just celebrate that she has gone to another realm, whatever that might be.
Mhm.
And if that's sort of a bit like Rauscher Farm, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm going on. I should let you all go.
I
You're
think you
waxing
get the
elegiac,
connection.
I guess.
That's
Yeah.
right.
What?
You're
Waxing
waxing
elegiac.
Go
Sorry,
ahead,
Dean.
Alan. Sorry.
No,
Sorry,
I was
Dean.
just parroting what you said, basically. Yeah, because I don't think Gloria heard it at
I
first. Yeah.
didn't. No, what was
Oh,
it,
I
Dean?
said you're
Yeah.
waxing elegiac.
Yeah, I guess I am. I guess I am. So I should probably ask for a motion to adjourn a town a town meeting conducted under open meeting law, which means a motion to adjourn at 7:32. Someone needs to make it, someone seconds it, and then we do the roll call votes. Okay. Who
I'll
would
make a
like to?
motion that we adjourn.
I second.
And that was 7:32. Okay. All those in favor, a roll call vote.
Deny.
Gloria, aye.
Alan, I.
Am I?
Oh, that was it, gang. So right now, I will cease recording. You'll hear that lovely lady's voice. Wait a minute. Where is she? Where is she? Okay. Oh, come on. Where are you? More. Wait a minute. Oh, it's over here. Sorry. Hang on.